What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. On today's episode of Garage Noise, we have a Dodge 2500 here. It's a 2500 heavy duty and it's had some damage. Well, it had two accidents. I think it was a deer that hit the front bumper cover, damaged the front bumper cover, and then it did some damage. The bumper came up and hit right here and bent out this, bowed out this fender. So we're gonna repair that and then we're gonna refinish this fender. Strip it all down, strip the headlights out. We've already taken off the front bumper cover, but this is the damage on the front bumper. Dent right there and it's dented there, so it's kind of tore up. We're gonna start with this fender and taking a look at it and straightening this out. So the bumper came up under here and tapped it here, bent it, bowed it. So how I'm gonna start this is I'm gonna start by pulling this down a little bit. So I'm gonna pull this down, try and get rid of this crown right here very easily without doing too much damage to the fender. Because the less damage we do, the less filler we need to put in here. It has a little body line right here. And that's just right behind that body line. So we need to pull that out and get that straightened out, and then we'll paint this fender. So here's a little bit better look at the fender before we took the bumper off. What I'm going to do is use this hook and hook right under here and do a little down pull on this to reproduce how it was hit and pull it out. It's looking very good right there. Now it's hard to tell, but that crown, most of it has come out. There's a little crown right here now. It's not so much up in here. So now all we do is get this crown right here knocked out and then make sure this edge is straight. So I'm gonna use the paint stick to soften the blow of the hammer. I'm gonna put it right on that ridge, hammer it down. That'll also push this metal out gradually. So I'm having to hit, the only thing that's really out is this heavy metal right here on this edge. Okay, that's perfect right now. Now I'm just going to tap down a little high spot right here. Okay, so I'm not really even going to grind this. I'm going to use some 80 grit on the Roberlo sander, feather edge this out, get it to bare metal, and then we'll see what we need to do there if we need to put a little bit of filler in this. So I'm kind of blocking it with the DA just to see how flat it is, and you can tell first part it took off is right there, so there's a little high area there. There's a body line that comes down this fender right here, okay, and typically it would go right here is the edge of it. It would go straight down here. Well, this is bowed out just a little bit, so when I hold this flat on that area, it's not sanding this area right here, and that's part of this section of the fender where that body line is. So I need to, there's probably just a little ridge right here, so we need to tap that down and then make sure this body line is there. And it was just, it looks like just sanding the paint off took care of it. So we'll prime it and then block it. There is a little bit of a low area right here, so we may put a little bit of the Roberlo crystal glaze right in there. I held this flat and I'm using this DA as like a block, flattened it out, and now you can see that low area I mentioned right here, now it's showing up because it's sanding the paint off here and here, but it's not sanding off here, so you can tell there's a little bit of a low area here. So now what we're going to do is I'm not going to strip this down to bare metal. I can go over this with the Roberlo crystal glaze right over top of the paint. Some guys are going to tell you don't do that. Some guys are going to tell you that it's okay. There's a lot of different opinions on it. Back in the 90s, manufacturers said go right over the paint. 80 grit it and straighten dents right over the paint. Sometimes that's not always possible. If you have a little ding, you can do that like this. But if you have an area that has to be metal worked and that type of thing, you need to take it down to bare metal. As far as adhesion and everything, I've never had a problem with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a skim coat right over here. Very easy, one swipe. And then I'm gonna let a little lay in there. A little less pressure on the spreader. So the first swipe, I pressed it in. And then the second swipe, I'm just going a little less pressure. This is pretty straight down here. I'm gonna clean up a little rough paint edge right there. Well, there's a little dent. So let me lay a little filler right in there to roll that edge. So we'll let that dry and then we'll block sand it, remove those 80 grit scratches and prime it. Okay, let's go ahead and block this out. We're gonna use some 180 to start with. We're gonna hold it flat, kind of go in an X pattern. I'm not gonna go over this ridge here, and then we'll go over it with some 320. Now I'm going to run over this quick with some 600, and I'll probably go up here a little bit, but we're going to 600 this entire fender. So, but I want to just get this area for primer and a little bit outside this area, and then we'll prime it. That feels perfect. Now we're going to tape it up. I'm going to tape it up along these edges, and then I'll probably just roll a piece of paper here and just primer this area here, and we'll get it ready for paint. Okay, so now I'm going to block the primered area with some 320 grit sandpaper. We're going to do a cross pattern to block it straight. We're going to look for any high or low areas or any imperfections in that body filler. Okay, so now we're going to sand around all the edges of this fender with a gray Scotch-Brite. We want to make sure all these areas are sanded, all the hard to reach areas, to promote adhesion of the clear coat and the paint. What I like to do is I'm going to put a piece of foam tape right there. So what I like to do is take this Scotch-Brite, this is a 600 grit Scotch-Brite, and I just roll the edge. I just sand just over that edge. And I go all along it, just over that edge. And then I put that foam tape up to that edge. So when clear blows in there, it's gonna actually hit areas that have been sanded properly, okay? And that way, when I peel that tape, there's going to be a soft edge there. It's going to have promoted adhesion where that clear is landed. So that's what I like to do on the jam area itself. Okay, so we're gonna tape up this fender. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is tape up this edge. I'm gonna run tape in there, wrap it around this door, and while I'm at it, I'm gonna sand this edge just a little bit over the edge with the gray Scotch-Brite. So if that clear goes over that edge, it's gonna adhere properly and we won't have any peeling issues. Now we're gonna use some foam tape in this edge here and then shut the hood on it, and that'll keep overspray from inside that jam. And it'll give you a nice soft edge where your clear coat ends. As far as the underside of this fender, we're gonna remove the bolts for the wheel well, and we're going to tape to the wheel well and back tape that so no overspray gets under there. And then around the headlight, I've pulled this headlight loose so I can spray inside this edge of this fender so we don't have any problems with adhesion there. So let's tape this up and then we'll get to spraying. Okay, so now we're going to spray the first coat of clear on this fender. I am using the Segola 3300 GTO gun. The air pressure I'm using today is 24 PSI. I've got 2.5 turns out on the volume, and the spray pattern is wide open. And if you're spraying your part at home, make sure you're overlapping on your passes 70%. You're keeping a consistent distance away from the panel, whether it's 4 to 6 inches typically. On your first coat of clear, you just want to put on a medium coat and create a good coat of clear for the second coat to adhere to. We're laying on the second coat now. I'm going to put it on a little bit heavier. I'm going to move a little bit slower, and I've bumped up my volume just a tad to probably 2.5 to 3 turns out. And remember, all these settings could be different for you depending on the environment you're spraying in, the type of gun you're using, and the way you spray. So just keep that in mind, pay attention to how the clear is laying down, and just have fun with it. It's okay to make adjustments and experiment a little bit. Click on these videos now if you want to learn more about how to straighten a dent or how to polish your paint like glass. I appreciate each and every one of you watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. We'll see you next time.